See my new strategy hat, my new MicroStrategy hat.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he changed his name from MicroStrategy to Strategy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because they're switching, to a full Bitcoin company.
So they're not going to do what they've done in the past?
Yeah, they still have it, but it's not going to grow or anything. They're going to be more of a Bitcoin, you know, treasury company. I think what he's
Yeah.
going to do, I'm just trying to get because I watch him all the time. I think they're going to, they just bought 5,000, 7,000 more Bitcoin this week.
Yeah.
I think they're going to get to a million. And I think at some point they're gonna be a bank, you know,
Wow.
where they can loan out. I think that's the word. I haven't heard that, but I'm trying to think where are they going with this, you know?
Right.
And they have strategy B with the Bitcoin symbol, and I'm thinking they could change that to B with a bank at some point.
Huh. That's interesting.
That's just my
There's
theory.
there's a lot of talk that about banking, like crypto banking and the DeFi thing recently. I see more and more people talking about that on some of the different social channels. Um, and it would make sense if if Bitcoin becomes regulated, number one, and number two, becomes more mainstream. Why not use that as collateral? Especially if the volatility sort of evens out in it. That's the biggest thing, is that it can go down a lot in a very short period of time. And for most people, um, that's scary to them. So,
I think watching it, and watching all the states that are legislations going through, for Bitcoin reserves, and watching now banks can store Bitcoin. They got rid of the SEP 121, and you've got more and more companies throwing Bitcoin into their treasuries, and countries are looking to do it. Czechoslovakia and El Salvador is there. I'm seeing less volatility on the downside. I mean, this whole stretch where we've kind of been going sideways again since after the election. We get down to maybe 95, maybe. One time you'll get a little tail, a wick down to 90, once in a while, but
yeah.
and then we go back up, and I was looking into it the other day because now I've turned into a full nerd on this. And they think, because what we don't see is the over the counter market. All we see is we go into Coinbase or whatever our broker is, and we see their books, for
Right.
what's moving. These big guys don't use like Coinbase to go and buy. They use the over the counter, and they do it in a way that you can't see it, you know?
Right.
And so they can manipulate price action just like they can in the stock market. And so I
Oh, yeah.
think I think they're accumulating under 100 right now as much as they can. And so I buy under 100. That's just my theory, you know. And then at some point you're going to see it spring up, to whatever 125 or whatever.
Yeah.
It just the supply and demand of it side just tells me it's got to happen.
Yeah.
But maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I
No,
got my
I think that's the part of markets that people really don't know about, number one, and then don't understand, is that there is an exchange of, I mean, you think about old school Wall Street. You've got one guy on a trade desk at JP Morgan and one guy on a trade desk at Goldman Sachs, and they're across the street from each other, and down the street's called Wall Street, right? And so one calls the other and says, "Hey, I got, X number of bonds at this yield, at this price." And the guy says, "Well, I'll buy them at, instead of 4.5, I'll buy them at, 4.4." And they agree on it. And then the guy goes, a runner goes and picks up the bonds, and they move them across the street. Well, that doesn't happen on, the bond exchange. It doesn't happen in public. And I think, people talk a lot about dark pools and dark pool trading. And that's where the majority of this is happening. So it's all happening under the surface. And then when they get what they want, they bring it to the surface and the stock goes through the roof or it goes through the
Yeah.
floor.
Yep.
And
Exactly.
and I think that's, you're seeing that now in crypto, like you're just saying, is there's a lot going on that we don't understand or we don't realize. And I think you're right about how the range of what 105, 105,000 down to probably around not 89,000 has been that range for a while now. And it's accumulation. And most people would look at it and go, oh, it's just, it's a channel. I'll just trade the channel. But what these guys are doing is we're just accumulating, like you said, 1 million shares or whatever. And once I achieve this supply, I'm then going to go buy, along with everybody else is doing the same thing. We're going to push this thing higher. And
Yeah. I see, MicroStrategy buys 7,000 Bitcoin at $100,000 is a big, that should move the market.
it should,
Yeah,
but it's
because
not.
there's only 1.4 million left, and I don't know, there's 400 and what 80 that get mined every day, so it's got to come from somewhere. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
it's
totally.
and I just saw that the over the counter is actually drying up with the amount of Bitcoin in the over the counter market right now because whales are pulling it off and not putting it back on market.
Wow. So it's going to shrink the supply,
It's yeah,
which basically you're just like squeezing a tube of toothpaste
yeah,
from the bottom, and eventually the top's going to pop off because of the
yeah.
pressure, and the thing goes through the roof. Yeah, I mean, it could easily. I mean, with that kind of, if you think of that through that, that's easily 150, $200,000 position.
Well, that's where
Whew.
what's his name, Tom Lee's talking about that all the time. 250 by the end of the year,
Yeah,
and he's pretty good on his predictions on everything. At first I didn't really like him all that much, but as I've watched him over the last couple of years, I'm like, okay, you're pretty good. You know,
yeah, yeah. Well, I look at like the Mag 7 in the similar way. You look at this range they get in, and is that the same thing happening, but on the flip side? Are they, um, are they getting rid of the positions they've had, and now they're building short positions in this? And is when they get to the optimal amount, which is probably a percentage of their overall assets, short these positions, they all of a sudden go super heavy with that last, 0.5%. And
I
that's
mean
when they start pushing it down.
that's possible. I mean, you look at the sideways motion of we've been looking at it for weeks, months. The markets, which is driven by the Mag Seven.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
and now I think ever since DeepSeek came out, you're seeing uh, you're seeing questions of why are you spending so much money and when are we going to get this money back? And then
Yeah.
I saw BYD today. I put it in our newsletter. Um, BYD, the Chinese car company, is going to use DeepSeek as their AI function for driverless cars. Okay, so it must be fairly decent, you know,
Yeah.
to be able to do that. That's interesting to me.
Well, you think about just the natural, you know, point the arrow to your hometown business. So why would China adopt ChatGPT versus DeepSeek? Why would, a car company like you're talking about go to an American company when instead you just go to a Chinese company? And I think it's very naive to think that in some aspects, like intellectual aspects, China can never be a part, be as good as us. I don't, you can, because half of those guys are trained over here. They come to our education system and take it back. From a standpoint of like building chips, well, yeah, they have trailed in the technology to build those chips out, and that's why they're not competitive in that realm. But to think intellectually they can't compete with us is just naive. And I think that's that whole thing though, I've started thinking a lot about this because you got Anthropic, you got ChatGPT, you got Gronk, which is Elon's esque model. Um, at what point does it just become a commodity? Like, I mean,
like a computer.
like a
Yeah,
computer. And I
yeah,
think that's where I look at, Elon Musk's offer to buy ChatGPT or OpenAI for $97.5 billion. I think you and I were going back and forth a little bit yesterday about, or maybe it was my brother-in-law or somebody, about when, in a year he's going to take 9.7 billion because it's just everybody's got it now,
yeah.
it's just like a computer. Um, so yeah, I don't, I think the evolution of a digital currency or digital assets like Bitcoin and these others, it's now become, it's so fastly becoming mainstream and has a utility that people are now recognizing, like Bitcoin being digital gold.
Oh
Um,
yeah, it's a store of capital. I mean, I truly believe that.
yeah,
Um, to say it has no intrinsic value, like like your dad said, at the
yeah,
at the 3 o'clock meeting last week, is to me, he has his opinion, but I have mine. It does have intrinsic value because it is made, it's mined. People have processes. It's checked on ledgers. Okay,
yeah,
and it has value. Okay,
right.
and
It,
gold is, I mean, gold just sits there. I mean, you got to mine gold. You got
yeah,
to, somebody's got to go dig it out and you got to melt it, and whatever. So
exactly.
yeah, commodities are, you know, assets, and
Eh,
Bitcoin is an asset. For me, I think it's, in my opinion only, I think that, it's a chance for generational wealth of my lifetime to get it, just like, the Mag Sevens when they were, penny stocks.
Right.
Um, because of supply and demand. And we'll see. I'm no genius, I know, but but as investors and as traders and as just regular people, we got to think this stuff out, and not let not let CNBC tell us what the frick to do, because they have an agenda, and it's not
Right.
we are not their agenda, other than the rug pull regular people of their money,
Yeah.
which I think, when you look at charts and things and how high this market has and the valuations we have, I have a feeling we're close to rug pull time.
I was looking at volume, 7-day volume on NVIDIA today, and it's at like a negative 11.23% or something like that. So it's the volume over on average has declined basically. And there's one day where you saw the pivot in NVIDIA where it pivoted, it was up 2.49 or something percent versus the day before. But since then, the volume has declined. And oftentimes when you see that, especially on a move up, that means there's less momentum pushing that stock higher. And at some point that, each day that there's a less and less volume in NVIDIA's case, and I'm going to go back to, later today and look at all the Mag 7 and see if I see the same thing. And then what it says to me is like this momentum that we're seeing in NVIDIA in the last couple of days or last, well, 4 or 5 days is actually short-lived because the big guys are actually not doing this. This is where they're selling out of it. They're getting to that high. I think you had a top end of 140 is a resistance level to the green line of death.
Yeah,
Um, I'm right at 139 on my calculations, but my downside
can't
is
get much closer than that.
no, you can't. And you look at the price action today and it's similar to that. And so I think you're right. I think that rug pull is coming. It's a question of what is that event that lights it up? Is it NVIDIA's earnings, Um,
Yeah, I don't
could
know.
be. Was that next
It's
week?
yeah, I think so. And it might not be earnings, it'd be guidance. Guidance always trips you up. And
Yeah.
we had the other mags come out and say they're going to continue to spend, but we'll see if they actually do that, because uh, they put a chart on our Discord that people can go see who are members. It came off of Fox Business. Charles Payne did a graph that showed the spending versus the revenue, of all these
Uh-huh.
on Mag 7s. And, the spending is up here and the revenue is right here,
Right,
and
exactly.
at some point, quarter over quarter, investors and brokerages, and they're going to want their return back. Okay, because
Yeah,
Michael Saylor would say, well, why don't you just put all that money in Bitcoin? And you don't have to worry about it,
you're right.
and do the Bitcoin strategy. But we'll see.
Yeah,
And but it is, I think, we've been saying on our channel and in our Discord, and you and I, and retail is just hopping in, and everybody else is kind of getting out. And when you look at Nvidia, all you got to do is go see all their executives have been selling. No one's buying. Okay. And
yeah,
so if they're not buying, why would I buy? I mean, I'll trade it if it gives me an opportunity, but
sure.
I'm not going to be a long-term investor at this point in Nvidia or most of the mags right now. It's just,
Yeah,
it's been some catalyst has to happen to move it up or move it down. And we're so touchy right now, and there's so much going on, with the Trump administration that, he is on TV like and 10 times in the afternoon and then 8 times in the morning, and the markets and the press don't know what to do when he comes out,
yeah,
it's going to be exciting. You got to have your stops in if you're a trader, even if you're an investor. You got to be careful. And again, it's a stock pickers market, and there's less stocks to pick right now than there were when everything went up. You know,
yeah. I think there's, in everything that I look at, the calculations, there's more downside versus upside right now, especially in the top, 7 to 10 of the S&P, which has been the majority of all of this run up over the last year of the S&P. And when that rug is pulled out, I mean, that's a major downside. And I think, I'm hearing more of the technical traders talk about shorting these companies. There's going to be more opportunity on that side. That takes a special education to figure that out and do it right. So definitely not advice or recommendation, but yeah, I think I had a conversation today with my sister-in-law about she's wearing these new shorts. I was like, oh, those are cool, like camo shorts. She goes, I got them at Walmart. And I was like, oh, really? And she goes, yeah, they got all this cool stuff and they're by Reebok. And we got to talking about the brands that Walmart is now bringing in. And it reminds me of something that Bob, the Bolt guy, said, Amazon will eventually become Sears and Walmart will rule the day. And I mentioned that to her and she said, huh? And then she just stepped back for a second and goes, oh, now I get it. I understand what you're saying because they deliver on time. They provide, it's all right there. Whereas, I'm still waiting for stuff from Amazon. Ooh, shit. What happened? Did my charts come up?
no, you're
Okay.
good.
Um, I'm still waiting for stuff from Amazon that I ordered, a couple weeks ago.
Wow.
And yeah, so I don't know, maybe there's this rotation starting to happen to go from high beta tech to more consumer goods, consumer conservativeness kind of thing. Maybe
I
that's
mean,
where the opportunity is
I
in the
mean,
near future.
in the Mag 7, you think about it, it's harder and harder to grow at the rates that they have grown at to get their valuations now as you get bigger. I mean, look
Yeah,
at Berkshire Hathaway. They're in the top 10 of the S&P. He's got 326 billion on the sidelines, in treasuries, losing money in treasuries because treasuries are paying 4%. No monetary inflation is probably 12%. So he's losing 8% a month
yeah,
on um, of my money, which is because I'm a shareholder in Berkshire also. Uh, but um, again, why does he have that money sitting on the sideline? And the only time he puts money, and that's the most he's ever had on the sideline, he's not finding value out there. And
right.
he's the world's greatest value investor, so
They should
um,
tell you something.
you got to kind of look as an investor or trader and go out and look at things. And that's why on our channel, we have news every morning. We have programs like this where we talk about it. We have Zoom calls where everybody gets involved about all over the nation and country. We have in the world, we have people from around the world
Yeah.
tell us what's going on, so it really helps out. And it's very unique what we have in, the Platinum Channel and Best of Us Investors,
Yeah,
um, helping
absolutely.
people maintain their own wealth, and maybe grow their wealth,
I
with,
think,
with the trading side and the news and the technical side of the Platinum Channel with Kerry's fundamental analysis on the Gold Channel. And it's awesome. You can get everything and make up your own mind, but at least you
yeah,
have the resources to go do it.
it's a chain of, if you link them together, it can be a very powerful tool to creating wealth.
Yep.
Absolutely. Welcome to the Best of US Investors 2 Regular Guys show. I'm Trent, this is Mark, and today we're going to talk Doge. And we're not talking the coin, we're talking about help me out on what this means. The
Department of Government Efficiency.
Yes, and
Yeah,
all of the great and interesting things that our taxpayer dollars are going to. And what does this mean for us as taxpayers? What does it mean for our government? And what could this mean for markets in general? So let's get to it. What's happening, Mark?
well, a lot's happening. I can't even keep up with everything that's going on. So today I thought, we'd talk a little bit about the most loved man in the world until he became the most hated man in the world, I guess, at least on some parts of the spectrum, which is Elon Musk,
Yes.
and his Department of Government Efficiency. And if you remember this, the Simpsons, Bart Simpson's always used to say, "What the deuce?" Well, today my rant is on what the Doge. You know,
What the Doge? There
so
you go.
let's talk a little bit about this and why are people upset about it and all that and you know, uh, and how it affects us as investors and traders. Oh, and don't forget to hit our like button because that helps us out on the algorithms. And
Absolutely.
yeah, so let's do that first before we get into it. We're just two regular guys. Um, Trent lives down in the southeast part of the country. I live right here in flyover country in the middle of the country. And so these are just our opinions and not financial advice, but this is what we think, and welcome your comments below. So
Right.
the White House Department of Government Efficiency has drawn scrutiny for the rapid work of its technology team burrowing into multiple agencies. But it also says it has identified and cut more than $1 billion in spending in 3 weeks. That's pretty good. We're not
Yeah.
used to moving that fast in anything. Doge began its review of a government waste and fraud and abuse, starting with USAID, and that's an NGO, a non-governmental office. Okay, so Congress allocates a bunch of funds a year, and then they spread it out, and they're supposed to help overseas and stuff like that. After finding questionable payments, the NGO was shut down with operations transferred to the State Department. So we got multiple lawsuits now. Seems like the opposition is going to fight all this in court. Okay, like we haven't seen that before. Lower
Right.
level judges are stopping things, and other judges are moving things along. So it'll end up in the Supreme Court at some point. So the U.S. So after looking in Doge is Elon's Musk teams of genius kids, 20-year-olds who are in there who started businesses at 13, which some channels and financial outfits say that make fun of them for that. And I think that's pretty awesome, because
It is pretty awesome.
they're all pretty wealthy, so they must be pretty good. So let's look at a couple of the things that our money, our taxpayers, going through just through this one NGO. And this isn't a complete list, but it's a list that's bigger than I thought. So we'll start out with the U.S. taxpayers are paying $10 million for pottery classes in Morocco.
Oh, well,
Okay,
that makes sense.
yeah, and I think
Yeah.
Morocco has been making pottery for years, so they could probably teach us how to make pottery. So there's $10 million of that. $40 million, and this is interesting, for bat research on coronaviruses at China's infamous Wuhan Institute
Move
of
on.
Virology. Isn't that amazing? Okay.
That's ironic.
Yeah, bat research on coronaviruses. Okay, that's $20 million to create Sesame Street in Iraq. I'm sure all the Iraqis want to see Bert and Ernie and Elmo and all that. Quite frankly, they can have it as far as I'm concerned. I don't want to see it, but anyway, that's your US taxpayer dollar, $20 million. We don't need it here, obviously.
Yeah, right.
1.5 million to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in Serbia's workplaces and business communities. Okay. I didn't know we had business communities in Serbia, but I guess we do. And we're paying for their diversity, equity, and inclusion training. 4.5 million to combat misinformation in Kazakhstan. Okay. Who knows where Kazakhstan is and how much misinformation is there? Okay.
Right.
Must be a lot because it's $4.5 million of your taxpayer dollars going there because we have so much money here in the United States. 1.5 million for art for inclusion of people with disabilities in Belarus. Sweet. The people of Belarus are happy to accept our $1.5 million because we don't have any artists here, I guess, who are
Right.
disabled in the United States who don't need that $1.5 million. 8.3 million for equity and inclusion education in Nepal. Okay. When I think of Nepal, I think of a bunch of mountains and a bunch of people running around the mountains, and that the
Right.
last thing they're really looking for is equity and inclusion education. They would probably rather take that money and do something else with it. But I think we could take that money, $8.3 million, and find something to do for it right here in the United States. But USAID has other ideas. $2 million for sex changes in Guatemala. Okay. I don't know.
Okay.
Every time I go to the dentist or doctor, my bill is pretty high. I think that we could use that in the U.S. health system, on legitimate flu. Look at the flu. What's happened with the flu? A lot of people could use
Right.
that right now, just going to the hospital for flus. Okay. My opinion only, maybe I'm totally wrong. Could be. $8 million for subsidizing subscriptions to Politico. And these subscriptions are like $10,000 a year. And I'm like, holy crap. And they're
Wow.
subsidizing for government employees. Like, you want your subscription? Go get your own subscription. Why am I paying for that? No one pays for
Right.
my subscriptions of anything that I buy. Okay, maybe they should. I don't know. And they also have been paying. There's money that's gone to the New York Times and to the BBC. Why? I don't know. Maybe they have a message they want out there that, goes along with whatever they're trying to do here. I don't know. $56 million. Okay. To boost tourism into Tunisia and Egypt. Okay. Oh my God. Egypt's got the pyramids. You'd think that'd be enough to get someone to go see it. I know
Right.
$56 million here in the Midwest to boost tourism. That would be like, that could last us probably 25 years here for tourism, you know?
Oh
Like, where
yeah.
do we go? Why are we doing that like we don't have enough are there little towns that could use that tourism dollar here in the United States? I think so.
I mean,
40
Florida.
million, 40, yeah, there you go. 40 million to build schools in Jordan. We got schools here falling apart and your property taxes keep going up or bond issues because they want to keep upgrading schools. We're sending $40 million to Jordan. Okay. Jordan says they're going to go to war today with Israel if they don't let Palestinians back into Gaza. So I don't, whatever, so, but 40 million.
It's I'm nervously chuckling right now because I'm like trying to suppress my upsetness. Like,
Yeah,
keep
I know.
going,
It's
please.
absurdity. I mean, all right, here's $11 million to help Vietnam learn how to not burn their trash. I could do it. $11 million, send me over there. Don't light it up. Okay,
Right.
put it
Exactly.
on a barge, take it up around China, drop it off in the ocean. Like all these countries do it. I don't know, but we're paying for it. I don't want to be paid for that. 45 million for DEI scholarships in Burma. I would think that a lot of students here in the United States could use a scholarship, to go to school, learn a trade, help our
Yeah.
economy. But I guess, a DEI scholarship in Burma for $45 million is what the US taxpayer wants us to do.
Yeah.
$520 million for consultant driven ESG investments in Africa. Okay, I don't even know what that means. 70,000 for DEI musical in Ireland. Okay, man, that seems like a
Aren't
lot
they
of
a
money.
musical enough?
Yeah, you'd think, because I'm Irish and we like the bagpipes and stuff, and we wear skirts. So what the heck? I
You've
don't
been
know.
doing it forever. I
We've been
mean,
doing
come
it
on.
forever. Now
What's
they
going to
now,
stop you?
I think that it's awesome that the United States taxpayer wants to pay where I came from for 76 million or $70 million for a musical. Or how about $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia? Okay, $47,000. That's more than a lot of people in the United States make. That's probably above our medium income, and we'll look that up just a little later. But
Yeah.
it's medium income for one family. 32,000 for transgender comic book in Peru. That's an expensive freaking comic book.
I mean, give
Okay.
that to Marvel. I mean, come
Yeah.
on. At least they can turn that into money. I
I
mean,
know.
shoot.
So here's a good one. $67 million of our US taxpayer money to protect biodiversity from wildlife crimes in South Africa. Okay. There are crimes against wildlife in
Oh
South
God.
Africa that I guess we need to send $67 million to. Okay. 44,
67 million.
67 million. And we talk about 67 million like it's nothing. But if any one of us who's watching this, any regular guy or gal, 67 million would be like, woohoo, that would be
Yeah.
awesome.
Oh
And
my
of
gosh.
course, the government would tax us half so they could go and spend more money like this crap on it, but what the heck? That would leave us 30 some million dollars, $33 million, and we could do what we want.
Right.
All right. No, it gets better than this.
Oh,
So
get out of here.
$44 million for economic assistance for Venezuelan migrants in Colombia. So we're paying for Venezuelan migrants in Colombia, probably as a staging ground so they can come here. I don't know. $44 million of our US taxpayer dollars for assisting Venezuelan migrants. Remember, this is what we got screaming people outside of the Doge office saying that the end of capitalism is here and this is a constitutional crisis because we're sending $44 million. We stopped sending $44 million of economic assistance to Venezuela. $439,000 for a works consultant in Syria. And I don't even know what the hell that means. Didn't Syria just get taken over by a bunch of rebels?
Uh, I think Syria is always in the midst of being taken over.
Well, and then it was over. It was a dictatorship for 40 years in Syria. $7.4 million to enhance efficient, inclusive, and accountable governance in Northeast Syria. $7.4 million. The country just got overran. Okay,
What is our
it's a
fascination with Syria? I mean, I've
I
heard
don't
it
know.
what 3 or 4 times now.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of them. So, but we'll send $7.4 million to Northeast Syria to enhance their efficient and accountable governance. But when we have a team like Doge going out and finding all the inefficiencies in our own government, that's we got to shut it down, call the courts.
Right.
This is ridiculous. Okay, so I find it hypocritical to me. Okay, $24 million for green transportation and logistics programs in the country of Georgia. Okay, $24 million for green trans logistics. 3.5 million to help next generations of Georgians, okay, not the state, but the country, to become civilly engaged. Okay. Does that mean go vote? I have no idea. But $3.5 million. Sweet. $59 million to enable grain and oilseed farmers with a special focus on female farmers in Ukraine. Isn't Ukraine this huge war? And we're sending a $59 million to enable grain and oilseed farmers. Okay. You don't think that I live in farm country. You don't think we could use that, and maybe some
Well,
help in the price and the taxes we pay for fuel, the price and the taxes we pay for land, property tax, what we pay for fertilizer, okay, to grow the food, so that people can eat. But we're sending $59 million, and I don't mind. Maybe we should do that, for our female farmers here.
I,
I'm sure they could use it here.
is there anything on your list that says we did this for a United States organization?
Not yet, but we'll
Not
see. Oh
yet.
yeah, hold on. $420,000 to pilot solar activity in Djibouti. Now,
Is that Djibouti, Iowa?
no, 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 no.
Oh, Oh, okay.
I bet most people don't know where Djibouti is. And the only reason I know where Djibouti is because I watched Captain Phillips, the movie, and that's where they were heading, before they got hijacked, was Djibouti to
Oh,
drop off all the aid and supplies to Djibouti, water and food and all that stuff. So
I
it's an
thought you were talking. I thought you were referring like my wife is over across the street. She heard Djibouti's over there.
no, 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 no. This is a family show. So again, anyway, we're piloting solar activity in Djibouti. Okay. Um, $3.3 million for a program called Being LGBTQ in the Caribbean. Okay. So I have nothing against that as long as I have a program that's called Being Irish in the Midwest and that they'll send me $3.3 million for whatever that is. But I'm Irish, I'm sitting in the Midwest, then I'd be
How
fine.
many Irish people are in the Midwest? Divide
Quite a
that
few. Yeah.
between that number. Everybody gets a check.
Yeah. That'd be awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
we get our money back. For all this is our tax money. This is our money that we pay, and they want to raise our taxes all the time because they don't have enough revenue, you know. All right. $11 million for a cooperative agreement for the US China Clean Energy and Climate Partnership. So we're spending money in China. Okay.
Who's who is it? Steve Bassett said when he was in front of Congress saying this is not about a green energy war between us and China. This is about an energy war. There
Right.
is no conversation in China about green energy. It's
Oh,
about how do I produce more energy to outrun these guys?
I think they built like 11 coal-fired power plants in the last couple of years in China.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
that's perfect. $11 million though, with just for an agreement. Okay. If they were still open, I would want USAID to come to me for $11 million. I would sign their agreement between the U.S. and the Midwest U.S. Clean Energy and Climate Partnership, and for the behest of the people of my state. Okay, $11 million. Shit, that'd run our state for 5 years probably. Would be
Wow.
great. Yeah. All right. Uh, let's keep going. 750,000 for Princeton to collect information on racial diversity and equity in the Middle East and North Africa. Just to collect information, $750,000 to Princeton University. Okay. Hmm.
Did they actually produce a report?
I don't know. It didn't say. It doesn't say any of these things really produce anything. So
They
here's
just
a
give
good
them the
one.
money.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything follow up. I haven't seen any follow ups on what good it is, how good it did, or was our money well spent. I can tell you right now, my vote is no. Okay. Whatever I get. Here's one for you. 9.9 million to create jobs within the carpet and jewelry sectors for women in Afghanistan. $9.9 million. So are there no women in the carpet and jewelry sectors here in the United States that might could use it? Maybe your wife, she's in the art industry. Maybe
Sure.
she could go into
I
jewelry
I got
or
a I got
carpet.
a
Maybe
I,
she could
I
do
got a
carpet.
daughter studying fibers right now. She easily could go into the fibers industry.
That's right.
Absolutely.
And so again, that's our taxpayer dollars. $109 million to Deloitte and Touche Consulting to support the Power Africa program in Nigeria. Okay, isn't Nigeria like a rogue country?
Oh
And
yeah.
what? And
It's a very dangerous country.
how is any of this benefiting you and I, the regular people and the citizens of the United States of America, who are paying our tax dollars in? 38% going into the federal government. For this crap. Okay.
Here's the thing, as you have been, didn't you mention the one about Sesame Street and Iran, I think it is, or
Iraq. Iraq.
Irak?
Yeah.
When you hear that,
Iran's next. We're gonna do an Elmo special there. I think next for
okay.
$48 billion. Yeah.
When you hear that, just as a regular person, do you just go, somebody's getting paid on that? Who's initiated this? Somebody in the United States is getting a kickback of millions of dollars on this
You
deal.
would think, and I think that's why we're seeing all these protests because the further they go into this, the closer they're getting to where's this money going to end up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't know that for a fact, but I do have a brain and I do think about this stuff. And why else would there be an organization that puts all this money out like this and not want to get some of it back, you know?
Who's the
And
president of Ukraine? Uh,
Zelensky.
Zelensky. Didn't he come out in the last month and say something to the effect of, "We haven't received all that money they're talking about"?
So you're a good front man. That's on the list.
Oh, it
We
is.
just
Okay,
haven't
great.
got to it yet. This is a long
Oh,
list. We could be this could be the world's longest video. Seriously, if I didn't choose to cut it off at some point. Here's a good one for you. $100 million of US taxpayer money well spent to improve the conditions of conflict-affected rural households in a sustainable manner in Colombia. A lot of money going to Colombia for some reason. I live in a rural household. I could use some of that $100 million, and I have you know I have problems in rural world, like just like they do
sure.
in Colombia. And why can't I get a piece of that? I don't know. You
Well,
had snow in Florida. Why can't you get a piece of that?
right.
That's conflicted.
What is
Okay,
the biggest, what does Colombia produce the most that is distributed throughout the world?
probably coffee and then drugs.
Cocaine.
Yeah,
There you go.
yeah,
If we're not tied into the cartels in any way, I mean, come on.
yeah, yeah. How about $66.2 million for Iraq to access justice programs?
To access. Is that
Yeah,
subscription fees?
I have no idea. I have no idea. But again, we got congressmen and senators and bureaucrats, protesting and yelling and screaming that this is a constitutional crisis because Doge has gone and identified these things that we're paying for. Okay, even if even if you want to pay for these, we should at least have the ability to know. Okay,
Yeah.
so here we go. This is the last one that I'm going to do on the on aid, USA.
Okay.
$490 million of the U.S. taxpayers' money, well worked for, hardworking people's money, to galvanize the international community to come together to prevent the collapse of the education system in Afghanistan. And for me, I think the education system in Afghanistan collapsed when that last plane took off and all those people fell off. And
Right.
13 Americans died during that whole deal. I think that's when it collapsed. That is
Yeah.
going straight, in my opinion, to the Taliban. Okay,
Oh,
to fight
absolutely.
against us, our money. Okay,
Isn't it
again,
like,
my opinion. My opinion.
I think it was on the Sean Ryan show, he said something to the effect on a monthly basis, we're sending, it was like 10 to 15 million a month to Afghanistan, to the Taliban in particular,
Yeah, yeah.
because as a payback for those that died, Taliban who died. That's
What about
our,
what
well, I
about the
mean, wait a
U.S.
second.
citizens? What about the 13 people that died?
No,
That
they're,
just yeah. I
yeah,
it's again. If it weren't so serious, it would be laughable. But it's not. I mean, seriously, this is our
yeah.
tax money. What about Ukraine? You brought this up. Ukrainian
Okay.
President Zelensky said his country's military has received only a portion of the more than 175 billion in U.S. aid earmarked for Ukraine's war against Russia, and that was February 1st by the Associated Press. He's only gotten like 75 billion out of the 175 billion. Okay, where did that go?
Oh,
I hear Zelensky has 3 yachts. Okay,
does he
and I heard
really?
that they found one of the minister's sons was like almost like in a drunken state with all kinds of money in a suitcase laying on cash, US dollars. So you can look that up on, and Google it and you'll see it.
Yeah.
Senator Joni Ernst from Iowa's investigation found that more than 5,000 Ukrainian businesses received foreign assistance funded by the American taxpayers through several US aid programs. These included the Competitive Economy Program and the Investment for Business Resilience. Up to 2 million was provided to each Ukrainian business. So 2 million times 5,000, that's $10 billion of the US taxpayer dollars going to Ukrainian businesses. And I just think to myself, how many US small businesses and jobs went away or gone due to the pandemic that could have been saved with this money here in the United States? Okay.
Yeah.
And
Mark,
it's
do you
yeah.
think the American people are aware I mean, I know it's showing up in, well, it's not really showing up in the news because a lot of the news stations will not talk about this, but do you think the average American, the regular people of America recognize this wasteful spending and how long it's been going on for?
Probably not. I mean, they may have a feeling that there was going on, but as long as their life moves on, without much pain, they're fine. But, then came the pain of inflation for people. And they're like,
Yeah,
I can't, what I used to be able to buy at the grocery store cost me double now. Okay. My car
yeah,
insurance went up, my property insurance went up, my salary did not. Okay. I am poorer than I was 4 years ago. Those kind of things initiate people to say, where is all this money going? And then
yeah,
they keep coming back and asking for more, tax money. So that's my opinion.
yeah. No,
So
yeah.
go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I think it's the lack of awareness that people have about what's going on. Now, I think the awareness factor has escalated in the United States since the election because of the big swing in how many people voted opposite what they typically would. I think that awareness is coming about. This, I think, is one of those things that you're going to see more and more people will grab onto. More and more people are going to have a conversation about we're sending how much to this country for what? And that could be a major impact on midterm elections in a big way.
Why? Yeah, I mean, why are groups in this country so, you know, so rashly trying to stop this information from coming out? What, don't you want to know this? Aren't you against government waste and spending? So something's going on, you know, that we need to find out, because,
Yeah,
well, who wouldn't want to find out this waste and help us out, in our country where we are? Let's
right.
let's look at let's look at what Doge has also done to save money. So Doge has coordinated across 35 agencies and led to the termination of 199 wasteful contracts, saving $250 million, including the contract for Asia Pacific, Sri Lanka climate change mitigation adaptation, and resilience coordinator services for the Forest Service. Also, workshops for the intercultural communication diversity dialogue circle communicating across differences. So $250 million to get rid of some of that.
Wow.
FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency sent $59 million last week to luxury hotels in New York City to house illegal migrants. I heard that last night they figured out there were 4 people that did that, and that's in violation of the executive order that the president put out, and they're now terminated. Okay,
Oh,
uh,
wow.
59 million, and it's like the Roosevelt Hotel. I think it's owned by Pakistan, and all the big hotels, luxury hotels, have year-long contracts to put migrants up, and security and food also. Um, Within the Department of Education, Doge terminated 3 DEI training grants totaling 15 million. One of the institutions had previously hosted facility workshops entitled Decolonization or Decolonizing the Curriculum. Okay. Um, think about, think about what FEMA did, and we put $59 million last week to luxury hotels in New York City. Hurricane Helene destroyed approximately 73,700 homes in North Carolina, according to FEMA, or about 12.7 billion out of the 15.4 billion of total damage to housing. Okay, those people are still living in tents and trailers. A friend of
Yeah,
ours just went to help them for a week, and he says it's amazing. They're in tents. It's winter there. Okay, and there's no help coming to them. $59 million to luxury hotels in New York City. How about the recent wildfires in California left more than 70,000 people homeless? Estimates of total economic loss, $250 billion. $59 million to New York hotels. All this other stuff that we're spending, okay, for green transportation in Burma or whatever it is,
yeah,
And here we have all this, and then people are like, how are we going to pay for this? We need to put a bill through. Well, one way we can pay for this is start looking at what we're spending, cutting that crap, and putting it here in the United States first, and then go help others. It's like being on the airplane when the mask comes down, put your mask on first, otherwise, and then help everybody. Otherwise, you may not survive.
right. I, yeah, wow. it's like, why would you as a citizen be against this other than if you're getting a benefit from it? Like if you're sitting at the Roosevelt in New York, and granted you're not a citizen and it's paid for. I mean, first of all, Roosevelt's gonna have to renovate that damn place. That's gonna cost even more money.
They'll probably charge us for that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Go on.
Let's look at the health and human services. HHS canceled 62 contracts worth $182 million. These contracts were entirely for administrative expenses, none touched by any healthcare programs. This included terminating a $168,000 contract for an Anthony Fauci exhibit at the NIH museum. We have a museum at NIH. Why do we need a museum at NIH? And then why do we need a Fauci exhibit? $168,000 canceled. Okay, I'm okay with that.
Wow. Yeah.
How about the General Services Administration? This is one I've been thinking about a long time. GSA, they take care of all our buildings and rentals and that the government owns. In the
Right.
past 6 days, the number of lease terminations of underutilized buildings has increased from 3 to 22, with savings increased from 1.6 million to 44.6 million, with tenants relocating to nearby buildings in the GSA portfolio. We have all these office buildings that are empty. And so what they're doing in Doge is said, we'll move over to this buildings, we'll fill these buildings up, and we'll terminate the lease, okay, of these other buildings. With a savings of 44.6 million, these are the first steps to right-size the federal real estate portfolio of more than 7,500 leases. This is only 22.
7,500?
Yep, 7,500 leases.
Holy
Plus we
cow.
own, plus the government owns a bunch of land and a bunch of buildings that we don't use or don't ever get any revenue from. Okay, we're losing all that taxpayer dollars. We sell that off the private sector, then they become taxable. I don't know, but this is let's protest it. This is what we're finding. How about Department of Treasury? So Elon Musk, the leader of Doge, said he was told there was about $100 billion of annual payments of entitlements to individuals without a social security number or even a temporary identity number. When I asked if anyone at Treasury had a rough guess of what percentage of the number is unequivocally an obvious fraud, the consensus in the room from Treasury people was about half, 50 billion a year or 1 billion per week, fraudulent.
Ooh.
And that's either Social Security or Medicaid, that's going out. And as of the early hours last Saturday, U.S. District Judge Paul Engelmeyer blocked Doge from accessing the personal financial data of millions of Americans in the Treasury Department records. He also blocked the Secretary of Treasury from looking at those records. I'm like, what? How can
How
that
is he
happen?
supposed to do his job?
I know. So that probably won't last, but they're using, anything they can to slow this down. They do not want that kind of information to come out. That look, how much, and look, the Social Security, I mean, we're in trouble. What's it, 2035 supposed to be, going negative then, and everyone's got to take a
Right.
cut. That's money that we put in there, okay, for us. And the federal government's taken in to that jar, taking our money out, putting in an IOU. It's supposed to be in a lockbox, but it's not a lockbox, okay? It's just not. That just really pisses me off. Department of Labor. So they wanted to go into the Department of Labor and look at, their transactions. In this case, a federal judge on Friday night rejected the labor union's pushback to block Musk's government efficiency team from assessing sensitive data at the Labor Department. District Judge John Bates, an appointment of former President George Bush, said that the groups failed to show proper standing necessary to win the temporary restraining order they sought against the Department of Government official, while expressing sympathy for their concerns that the Musk-led effort presents some privacy risk. So they didn't have standing. Okay, why would a union have standing in the Department of Labor about their statistics and their, what do they not want out? Okay, well, this judge said we
Right.
don't have any standing. Okay.
Huh.
Anyway, currently there are many lawsuits in process trying to stop Doge from exposing more waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government. And we'll see how that all comes out. But again, even Congress isn't exempt. The report came out from the Congressional Budget Office. It's a required report. Congress spent at least $516 billion in 2024 on programs which there was no authorization. In a report titled Expired and Expiring Authorizations of Appropriations for Fiscal Year 2024, CBO observed, historically, House and Senate rules restrict lawmakers from considering an appropriation if it lacks a current authorization. Nevertheless, CBO estimates that 16 billion was appropriated for 2024 for activities with expired authorizations, which the agency identified for each House and Senate authorizing committee and appropriation subcommittee. That's 516 billion in illegal payments, cover 1,264 authorizations of appropriations that expired before the beginning of fiscal year 2024, and 251 authorizations of appropriations that were set to expire by the end of fiscal year 2024. The legal authority for some of these payments expired 40 years ago. Okay. In
Wait a second.
CBO's estimation, 49% of authorizations identified for this report expired at least a decade ago. The oldest expired in 1980. More than 70% of such authorizations were for specified amounts of annual funding that, when combined, total 101 billion for the year when they were last in effect. The remainder authorized appropriations of indefinite amounts. 560 billion in funding for fiscal 2024, which authorizations have expired, can be attributed to 491 expired authorizations contained in 177 laws out of all 304 laws with expired authorizations. Of that total, 395 billion associated with specified authorizations, 121 billion with indefinite authorizations.
Okay, so if the authorization expired a decade ago, they're just still paying it.
Right now, yeah.
Is that just auto pay? Is that just a lack of, we haven't gone through auto pay and shut this off?
No, I think it's they didn't spend it within the authorization time, so it has to stop. If they even wrote the first check, okay, it might have been sent somewhere else, as far as I know. Who knows? This just shows that even in Congress, they need somebody to go and look at what's happening there, because it's just spend, and no one follows up. Where's the follow up here? You know, this is the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office. They are required to put this report out. Okay. Just like that, the Department of Defense got audited, and for 7 straight years, they failed the audit. Where has anybody ever gone in and fixed it? How can you fail for 7 years? Okay. Where is somebody to go fix it? We have no follow up and no responsibility for why is this happening. And I think as a citizen, this is what I want Doge to go find, and bring it out so everyone can look at it and see what's going on.
Who is screaming about this? Is it the politicians or is it the American people?
No, it's the politicians and the bureaucrats, and I'll come to that here in a second.
Okay, sorry to front run you on this.
No problem. You're a good front man. You're like Johnny Carson had Ed McMahon. You're my Ed McMahon.
There you go.
So why is this important to us? Well, the U.S. is $36.5 trillion in debt. That's $323,046 per taxpayer. Okay. The interest on our debt is over $1 trillion. Total U.S. debt, including household, business, state, and local government, financial institutions, and the federal government, is over $100 trillion. Student loan debt is $1.7 trillion. Credit card debt is $1.35 trillion. Our Social Security liability is $28 trillion. Medicare liability, $43 trillion, leaving the U.S. with $226 trillion in unfunded liabilities. Okay, but we still have money to send for Sesame Street in Iraq. Okay, so let's talk money supply. In 2000, the M2 money supply was 4.6 trillion. Today, it's 21.7 trillion. This is the base of the debasement of our dollar and all of our wealth. So in today's money, it would cost you $172 to buy $100 of the same product, let's say it's groceries, in the year 2000. We have so much more money in the system because we're printing money, okay? We're debasing ourselves. We're taking away our own wealth, okay? Because we're not on a gold standard. There's no standard. We just keep printing. When we talk about currency and credit derivatives, they were 88 trillion in 2000. Now we're at 723 trillion. And remember, credit default swaps from the great financial crisis, well, they're back. Okay. So what about the workforce? How are we paying for all this? The total population of the US is 340 million. In 2000, the US workforce totaled 162.8 million. Today, it's 161.7 million. That's lower, okay, than it was in 2000. So we got less people, okay, actually paying for this than we had in 2000, which also puts a hardship on everyone. You think about why everything's so high. We got more baby boomers retiring. We got more people on disability, okay? Of those, 27 million are part-time when you look at the labor force. Less people are paying for more spending. 37 million US citizens are living in poverty, but we're still sending money for comic books in Peru. Okay.
Right.
27 million have no insurance. 700,000 US citizens are homeless, but we're still sending money for all these things that are supposed to be helping us. We have needs here. We have 42 million food stamp recipients in this country out of 360 million. That's ridiculous. Why are we sending all this money? This is why it's important, okay,
Yeah.
for us to go find this money and redirect it to where it needs to be. So in Washington, D.C., these last couple of days, we've been seeing staged protests from Elizabeth Warren, Maxine Waters, Chuck Schumer, and the gang saying shutting down these programs will result in the deaths of thousands of children. They're talking about a constitutional crisis, and everything that we went through in the USA aid program, I haven't seen anything focused on feeding the children anywhere. Okay.
Right.
Um, in kind of conclusion, I can't vouch for the validity of the spending debacle that Doge has found, but I do know that we have people in North Carolina still living in tents because of that hurricane. There are veterans living on the streets of the U.S., and a lot of citizens have lost their homes in a fire in California. These should be the priorities of our government and our tax money before we subsidize the subscriptions for political within the U.S. bureaucracy to the tune of $8 million. We have a spending problem, so let's at least have a discussion of where our tax dollars are going. We're in a different world with the Trump administration, and we can see several major policy moves in a single day. With a market that's been used to maybe one report in a week or a month, this will certainly add additional volatility into the mix we see in our daily stock charts. The only constitutional crisis I can see is our growing national debt. We can look at the debt clock to see what's going on there. So
Yeah.
I'll drop you if I can get a screen. I'll send this over to the debt clock, and we'll take a
Okay.
look.
All right.
So our revenue is a little over $5 trillion. We're spending actually $7.1 trillion. So our deficit is about a little over $2 trillion. Okay. So we're spending more than we brought in.
Yeah.
So if we go back and we just take that 2 trillion off, we could be even, in our spending. Who can, in your own budget, let's just say it's you bring in $5,000 a month, but you spend $7,000 a month, so you're overspending by $2,000 a month, and on top of that, you're paying $5,100.66 in interest on your credit because your credit's maxed out. Okay, it's just insanity if you go look at it, and no one can do
Yeah.
this. And the only reason that they can do it is because they're printing more money and they're taxing us more, and they're spending more. Okay, um, so money creation, U.S. Treasury dollars. In 2000, the U.S. Treasury had $3.5 billion is what they put out in 2000. Now it's $1.6 trillion in treasuries we're putting out. That goes back to that M2 money supply. Okay, let's look at medium income in 2000 was 31,649. Today it's 43,377. So we went up by $12,000, okay, for medium income in the United States. If you wanted to buy a new home in 2000, it was $161,900. Now, if you want to buy a new home, it's $420,737. Okay, that's a lot more than how your income went up.
Yeah.
Average new car, 2,000, 22,000. Now, 48,000. Way higher than how your income's going up, because we have so much money out there. Inflation's taken away your purchasing power. Inflation is the cost of your house, cost of your home. I mean, the cost of
Right.
your car going up, and that's what we're seeing. We're running out of the ability to pay for this debt.
But you
So
think about inflation in the sense of buying a car today versus 25 years ago is a negative. A lot of times what people don't recognize is inflation from a asset. Like if you bought a house 25 years ago for 100 and some thousand, today you can sell it for 400. That's, you got 4 times your money basically.
however, the cost to maintain that, and property taxes and insurance that you got to put in there, would probably exceed the amount of money, and your interest payment on that house would probably exceed the amount that you actually get
True.
back. You think you're doing it, but every year you pay property tax, every year you pay insurance, every year you pay maintenance and upkeep. Uh,
I,
and then take
I
that over 30 years and then
yeah,
say you sell it. I bet that you didn't make money off that.
I think this is where Michael Saylor has done a video about if you bought a house in Miami for $4 million on Miami, South Beach, the cost of that capital appreciation versus if you just thrown it at Bitcoin. Not that I'm advocating for Bitcoin, but I think this is where you have to look at how inflation affects us and the fact that we're just continuously printing money in our M2 money supply is just gigantic versus what it was X number of years ago. Becoming more aware of that in that there's a household making five with a $7,000 expense is not going, the likelihood of outrunning that and reducing that cost is unlikely. Because like I'm sitting here thinking about it from my perspective, I'm like, well, where would I minus 2,000 in a heartbeat? And I'm like, well, if I got rid of health insurance, if I got rid of car insurance, um, got rid of a car payment, got rid of a college student education. Um, yeah, I could do it in a heartbeat, but some of those things I really need. Could I
So
get a
you
cheaper
need
car?
you need
Absolutely.
you need Doge to come in and help you out. That's what you need.
Well, the problem is a lot
The Department
not
of Grinkmeyer Efficiency.
right. But I guess the thing is from a household standpoint, that difference, yeah, you could eliminate coffee at Starbucks. You could eliminate certain programs. But I think in relation to the United States government, the government's just, they're buying, quote unquote, the coffee every day at a excessive price. Instead of buying a toilet seat at Home Depot for $22, they're paying $22,000 for that. And that's where I look at this and I go, shame on them. And but also shame on us for not paying attention and
Right,
calling
exactly.
these guys out,
Yep.
and I think that's what we're seeing now. And if those people who are standing in front of, the US aid, whatever place and screaming, I want in and blah 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 and all of this, I'm like, you're getting benefited from that and I'm paying for it. And
Yep.
now I'm pissed because
Yep.
now I know. Yeah.
Well, and
Yeah.
this all goes back at some point, the house of cards, we cannot continue looking at the debt card. At some point, the interest is going to swallow up the ability to pay it. Okay. We're already, you know, our spending to GDP is 40.77%. Total debt to GDP, 133.5%. US federal debt to GDP ratio, 123%. We're already on the edge. Okay.
Yeah.
And if we don't fix it now, it's going to turn into a bunch of pea soup, and that's going to affect your wealth. It's going to affect your financial accounts in the stock market eventually. It just will.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's why we're
Hmm.
bringing it up today. That's why for me personally, I want to know where the money's going. I want to know, if it's a good cause and it helps people and it helps the Americans first. I'm all for it. You know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
again, we got our own issues here, and we need to settle them.
And I think I would just, if a politician is watching this, I would just ask, please just get realistic and quit. I mean, you've made your money, you've padded your pockets. Now let's give it back to the US citizens. You
Right.
know, I mean,
You got to wonder how a lifetime career politician who was probably went in making 25,000 in the private sector, and now, make 175,000, have three houses and they're multimillionaires now. All of them,
that's that's
you
not
know.
right.
Well, I can see the connection, right? I can connect dots,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah.
Um, but it's not happening for the rest of us. And that's our
No.
money.
Yeah. Winter midterms?
Well, less than 2 years.
Yeah. Okay. What, 2026?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Just imagine how much will come out between now and then.
Yeah. If they
Yeah.
let us get through these court cases, but you know, it'll be interesting. Eh,
Yeah, well,
we're just two regular guys. What are we going to do? We're going to pay our bills. We're going to live within our means, something our government can't do, and we'll
right.
move on.
That's all you can do. And I think that's, when it comes to this massive tsunami wave that is coming at us as citizens, we have to look at this and go, okay, how do we get over to the other side? How do we, you know, go to the right or go to the left to avoid this massive wave? And I think that's where learning to create wealth creation, but also learning to preserve it is really the key. And I think that's, more and more what I see what we're doing. We're talking more about capital preservation on the Platinum channel versus capital appreciation, because we're now in that phase of where appreciation is basically stagnant. It's stopping. And we have more downside risk versus upside. And I think that's where, if you've just been one of those people who's just like, oh, I'll just buy it and put it in, and 20 years from now I'll retire. I think more and more that's becoming harder and harder to do. Because like you said, it's like 25 years ago, a house cost 100 some thousand. Today it's 400 and some thousand. If we continue on this path for the next 10 years, it's going to be 700, 800,000. You won't be able to have a home in retirement. You just can't.
Well,
You just
people
can't.
can't. Young people can't afford it now. They can't even get into a starter home. Interest rates
Yeah.
are too high. The price of houses are too
I I I have a daughter she's got to probably renew her lease for probably 1,900, $2,000 a month. And I'm like, it's unfortunate. Now, granted, it's the area we live in. She pays for that, but she can't afford to buy a house at the age of what, 25. Most people, your generation, my generation, we were able to buy a house at that point in our lives because it was affordable, we were making the money, and that was how we started. Today, these young people just don't have it. They can't. It's just outrun them. And I think what you just shared with us is a lot of that money could just be reverted back to us, cut the costs, cut the expenses, and allow us to be able to achieve those great, that American dream.
high. Yeah.
Yeah, go team. Uh,
Yeah. That's it.
go Doge.
Yeah. Well,
I'm
I want to know where's our money going, and everyone should have a right who's a taxpayer to know where their money's going. Okay.
yeah.
And if it's not right, stop it. If there's corruption there, pay the consequences. You know,
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. But
because
I
we
think,
can't. This is not sustainable. They always use sustainability. This is not sustainable. Look at this
no,
debt clock. It's not sustainable.
I guess what is the point where you cross over into, where it falls apart? At what level, what has to happen? What events have to happen where it just craters, where they
I think
default?
I think I think when the revenue stops, and I think the revenue stop if we go into some kind of crisis where people lose their jobs or their incomes, because people are leveraged out too on their credit cards, their home payments, their car payments, plus the cost of living. And if the employment rate starts to go down, and I think that the employment figures, we talk about this all the time, Platinum, are fixed. I mean, we look at who got in jobs, and we're no uh, regular citizens. It was all immigrants who took the jobs, and most of them were part time. If you look into
Right.
the reports, and they revise them down all the time, I think we're going to see some issues come up. But I think it's employment. I think that's the last leg of the stool to go.
Yeah. That makes sense because if you don't have, if people aren't employed, they don't generate income, they don't go out and spend. And since we're a
Well, you lose your
consumer-based
house,
nation, yeah,
you
you
lose
lose
your
your house.
car. Yeah, you
Yeah,
can't go to college. You're destitute because you've already, we've seen people are putting their food purchases on credit cards. Okay.
yeah.
The things that they need to live on credit cards,
Who is it?
gas,
A firm? Is that
affirm.
company
Yep.
pay
Buy
now,
now,
pay
pay.
later, or buy
Yeah.
now, pay later?
Yep.
I believe, if I remember correctly, their earnings were incredible. They were doing really well. I just question, like, where is it? How many people are not making the payments? prior to where it goes to, they start paying interest, they start paying.
or making minimum payments,
Yeah.
look at the interest rates. Go look at your credit card statement and tell me it's not 25 to 30% interest
Oh,
if you,
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's criminal. Okay.
Yeah. And that's one thing, I think there was a bill put out there here recently or being written to cap interest rates on credit cards at 10%. The chances of that getting through are like super unlikely because somebody's getting paid on that.
Well,
Somebody in government is getting paid to keep
well,
them at
yes.
that rate.
They had the hearings like with Kennedy, and Kennedy brought up the fact that Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders are the top two, top two Democrats getting money from the pharmaceutical industry. No, we don't. And then they looked it up, and there it is. You know,
Oh God.
top
Yeah,
two, and they're
it's
talking about
insane.
this and big banks, and ripping off people. And Bernie Sanders has 3 homes. It's pretty good for a socialist in a capitalist country.
That's insane.
Yeah,
Yeah. How do you become that wealthy in that when you've not held
I
another
wish
job?
I wish he'd write a book so I'd read it, and figure it out. Then we could all be wealthy.
It'd be nice if they just disclosed everything at some point and said, here's how I did it. Here's how I
I
milked
think
you.
I wish I could get Nancy Pelosi's husband to trade for me though, because it seems like he's the world's greatest trader.
He is. Wow. Well,
Anyway, that's my
well,
opinion.
all
We
right,
just
Mark.
have fun
Well,
here. We just have fun here as two regular guys.
that's right. Well, and
Yeah.
I think, at the end of the day, this is about the more you know and the more you're aware of, the more you can better make better decisions about how to preserve and grow your wealth. I think that to me that is one of those things that we all need to pay attention to. Absolutely. Yeah. So, all right, Mark, anything else you want to hit on today?
No, I think I've ranted enough.
Okay.
I'm I'm dejected and depressed now. I mean, these are all the things that,
That's
oops,
insane.
yeah, these are all the stuff that just
Yeah.
wasting money on you. I'm trying to keep a list, but I don't have enough paper.
Well, maybe you could submit support the paper use of the Midwest
Yeah,
and
yeah,
get
yeah.
three
There
point
you go.
five million dollars for it.
Yeah, I could, but I'd have to go to like Burma to get it, though.
Yeah, right. Well, just, incorporate a little part of your land into a Burma of Nebraska.
Oh, there you go.
And just leave Nebraska off the
Yeah,
application.
we can do that.
There you go. Well,
Well,
all
we are
right,
kind
Mark.
of we are kind of a foreign land sitting here in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, I've been through your land many times.
Yeah, you
Yes.
have. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Mark. We'll wrap it up there.
All right.
We've got a couple other videos coming out this week. We talked about institutional money or institutional purchasing of crypto, but as well as stocks and how a lot of what we see we don't see in markets and how the institutions are taking advantage of it. And then Thursday, we're also going to talk about the Mag 7+1 and where they presently stand at. So look for those videos. Check us out on bestofusinvestors.com. We have the Platinum channel. Check us out. We have a 14-day free trial on that. You can go to the link in the bio down below. Please hit the subscribe button and the like button. Share with a friend. We always really appreciate everything, your support. And if you have comments or suggestions, please leave them in the comments section. We appreciate it. In the meantime, until next time we meet, have a great day and always live loud. See ya.
And cut.
There we